Hello my amazing people, and welcome back to my channel. If you're back, if you're new though, welcome to my channel. I'm Shayna and I have another case for you all today. Before we get started, just my usual disclaimer: this is all information that I have found online and compiled into a video for educational purposes. I chose this particular case because I find it very relevant to today's society. We're talking about the untimely passing of Samantha Josephson today, and if you are unfamiliar with her case, she met her untimely demise after using a rideshare app, which many of us use today. But without further ado, I would like to thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart so very much for joining me today, and let's go ahead and get started. Samantha Josephson, who preferred to go by Sami, was born in Princeton, New Jersey, and grew up in the Robbinsville area of New Jersey, which is about 40 minutes away from the Jersey shoreline. Samantha was loved by so many. She had an infectiously happy personality, it seemed all of the time, and was always incredibly bubbly. Samantha had great relationships with both her mom and her dad, as well as her sister, and she had an extended family that she was extremely close to as well. And the personality that she had was known to bring everyone together. She was really just a sweet and kind human being that was a joy to be around. After finishing up high school, Samantha decided that she wanted to make the trip down to South Carolina to pursue a political science degree from USC, otherwise known as the University of South Carolina. And while she was at USC, she became a member of Alpha Gamma Delta sorority, and she also got to explore the world, which was incredibly exciting for her. She studied abroad in Barcelona and also had the chance to visit Madrid and Paris as well while in school. She was actually on track to graduate from college in 2019, and she was looking forward to this new chapter in her life that was soon to come, which of course, for someone as smart as her, actually included more school. Samantha was very intelligent, and she was able to land a full scholarship to Drexel University's School of Law, which is located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A full scholarship. I didn't even know they offered full scholarships for law school, so she was obviously a very bright, intelligent young woman. Her long-term goal was to practice international law, but in the meantime, while she was an undergrad, she actually worked as a waitress at a place called the Liberty Tap Room. Around this time, Samantha had been in a happy relationship with a young man since the spring of 2017, and her boyfriend also attended USC. It appears that they actually met in this area, and he graduated a year before she was expected to graduate. The two planned to move to Philadelphia after Samantha started law school, and from what I could tell, they really loved each other and had long-term plans of spending the rest of their lives together. Currently, though, she and her boyfriend had a semi-long distance relationship, with him living about 2 hours away, but they would frequently visit each other, with him usually being willing to make the trip down to see her. But outside of her relationship, Samantha was just very happy in general. She had a great social life. She had roommates and friends that she would spend time with on normal nights, and it seemed like all of the relationships in her life were thriving. People really loved her. March 28th of 2019 started off like any normal day. Samantha woke up, she sent some texts to her boyfriend, and she was actually planning on going out that evening with her friends. There's a part of Columbia, which is not far from the USC campus, called 5 Points District, where they would often go out, have some drinks, spend some time. So she talked to her boyfriend about her plans to do that, and she also was trying to encourage him to come and see her, and he was basically saying that he wasn't going to come that night because the two of them were planning to see each other just 2 days later. And like I told you, they live 2 hours apart. So he was saying, no, I'll probably just see you in a couple days. And she was trying to convince him to come and see her. And they exchanged phone calls and text messages and FaceTimes throughout that entire day. Around this time, she had kind of been feeling a little down in the dumps, a little sad, because a close family member of hers had actually fallen ill. And when she was talking to her boyfriend, he was trying to encourage her to just go out and have a good time. So this night out with her friends was very much needed. This was something that was going going to at least get her mind off of everything that she was stressed out about at the time, but also it was an opportunity for her to celebrate her recent acceptance into law school. So while she wasn't having the best day as far as her mood went, she still had something to look forward to at least that night. So she and her friends went out, they made a couple stops that evening, and Samantha kind of got tired and was ready to go around 2 a.m. And the bar that she and her friends were at is called Bird Dog, and that is where she actually left from. She told her friends, like, look, I'm just kind of ready to head in for the night. Her friends said okay, and Samantha ordered herself an Uber. And just like she had been doing for the earlier part of that day, Samantha was still communicating back and forth with her boyfriend. So he knew about the time that she was ordering the Uber just after 2 a.m. and he decided to actually track her location on the Find My Friends app on his phone just to make sure that when she got in the Uber that she made it home safely. As he watched her location move on the map, he saw that the little dot that showed where she was started traveling from the bar into a southern direction, which was the opposite direction from where she actually lived. And he thought it was odd, and he actually tried calling and texting her at this time but received no answer. And then finally, between about 2:30 and 2:40, Samantha's location was no longer available to him at all. And the two of them, when they would exchange text messages, had their read receipts turned on, or their read receipts. So basically what that means is when either of them would text one another on their iPhones, it would designate when the other person opened their message. So when he saw that her location wasn't going in the right direction, he was texting her, but all of the messages were just showing as delivered. They weren't actually showing as though she had read them. He thought the text and location issues were odd enough for him to reach out to her friends. So he decided to call her friends and see if any of them were with her or could confirm where she was. And all of them told him the same thing, that they hadn't seen her since she left the bar alone. All of the friends kind of got worried and decided to contact her on their own, but nobody was actually able to get her on the phone. And at this point, people were growing more and more concerned, but trying to relax and be positive and just think maybe that she had made her way maybe to someone else's house or had lost her phone but was totally okay. People were trying to just think positive at this point. Since her boyfriend was 2 hours away, there wasn't very much he could do, but knowing that Samantha was a very responsible person, he figured that she was fine, so he decided to lay down for that night and hope that he would hear something in the morning. But he got a call before 11 a.m. the very next morning from Samantha's roommate, who let him know that she never made it home the night before. And this roommate, as well as other friends, were concerned enough that they decided to contact the police and file a missing persons report. Her boyfriend decided to make the trip down to the USC area to look for Samantha, since nobody had any idea of where she was that next morning, and he had kind of seen where her phone last pinged in the town. So he and other friends of Samantha's made their way out to this area to look around on the ground to see if maybe they could find her phone. And they also were knocking on doors in the neighborhood to see if anyone who lived in the area had seen her or seen anything that could lead to where she was. Everyone was kind of freaking out at this point. And thinking really strategically and thinking ahead, the group actually decided to go to local businesses in the area to see if any of them would be willing to hand over the CCTV footage from the night before and that morning, just hoping that maybe there was some sort of sign of Samantha in what direction she had headed. They weren't having very much luck until they made the very wise decision to go to the Bird Dog, which was the bar that Samantha had left her friends at the night before. And the Bird Dog were happy to look at the cameras with them and see if they could find anything of value on the camera footage. And when they pulled up the CCTV, right there in 4K was Samantha getting into a car the night before that everyone presumed was her Uber. All they really knew was that it was a dark-colored Chevy Impala and that Samantha had gotten into the car alone. Of course, with the bird dog's help, this CCTV footage was turned over to the police, and the group decided to continue doing their own searches around the town for Samantha. In the late afternoon of March 29th, two young men who enjoyed going turkey hunting were actually planning to go turkey hunting on this day in an area of South Carolina called New Zion, which is not in Columbia. So these are two men who are doing their own thing on this day, completely unrelated to Samantha's disappearance. They had no idea that it was even going on at the same time that they were planning to go turkey hunting. New Zion is a very rural area. It is basically combinations of open fields and heavily wooded areas all mashed together with very few residents in between. The town has about a population of 2,000 people, less than 2,000 people. The latest estimate that I saw online was 1,800. So it's a very, very rural area where these two were going turkey hunting. As the two are walking around the wooded areas of New Zion with their binoculars, they're looking around for turkeys to see if there's anything worth hunting out there, and they separate briefly actually for a moment. One of the gentlemen is walking kind of down a narrow road to look at the end of the road where there's an open field to see if any turkeys were located down there, and he didn't actually see anything, so he started to make his way back to where his other friend was located. And as he's walking back, something catches his eye in the woods, and he knows that it's not a turkey, but he's not sure what it is, and he's looking and he's kind of perplexed and not really sure what to think at first, but he takes a few steps closer to this thing that he sees in the woods, at this point completely unaware of what it actually is. And as he gets closer, he believes he is looking at human remains. Not sure if his eyes are playing tricks on him or what exactly to think. He beckons his friend over to come and give a second opinion, but the two are still standing pretty far away from where this suspected body is located, and they're looking at each other like, we should probably call the police. Obviously, authorities came out to the scene and they confirmed that this was in fact the body of a young woman laying in the woods, and she had no life in her at the point that the police arrived. The police asked the two men that were on the scene some questions, and when the two of them were cleared, they were free to go. The body of the young woman found was confirmed to be Samantha Josephson, and this had people scratching their heads. I mean, New Zion was an hour and a half away from where she was last seen in Columbia, and she had no ties to New Zion. There was no reason that she would have been in this area where realistically people didn't travel through. It wasn't a travel through kind of town. It was offset on its own, and the people who went there were really only the people who lived there. So for her to end up all the way out here alone, it was just confusing. Her parents had already made the trip down to South Carolina from New Jersey by this point, and they were shocked by the news that their daughter had been taken from them so soon. They were distraught. I mean, her boyfriend said that he fell to his knees when he found out, and her friends were totally heartbroken as well. Dr. Thomas Beaver conducted the autopsy on Samantha's remains, then determined that she had 120 sharp force injuries to various parts of her body. This included her face, neck, shoulder, torso, back, leg, feet, and even her hand. The attack was so severe that main arteries were punctured, resulting in extreme blood loss to the point that Samantha only had a mere 2 tablespoons of blood in her body at the time her autopsy was conducted. That is the severity of the injuries that she sustained. And the injury to her hand actually punctured from one side of her hand all the way through to the other. So while she was fighting off her attacker, her hand was stabbed all the way through. Dr. Beaver determined that from the start of the attack, it would have taken about 10 to 20 minutes for Samantha to pass away. So this wasn't instant, it wasn't painless, and she would have been awake and aware of the entire situation from start to finish. Whoever did this to her would have had to use a lot of force and a lot of energy to cause the number of severely damaging wounds that she had on her body. Going back to the Chevy Impala that Samantha was seen getting into on the CCTV footage, police had sent out an alert so that all officers patrolling were looking for this vehicle so that they could live stop this vehicle or approach and search the vehicle if they came across it throughout the town. So everyone kind of had this on their radars. And it didn't take very long for police to come across a vehicle matching the description of this dark colored Chevy Impala. Less than 24 hours after she was reported missing, police actually made a live stop of a driver who was in a Chevy Impala. This car very closely resembled, if not completely matched, the one that was in the CCTV footage. And of course, police weren't 100% sure at this point if it was the Impala, but they knew that at the very least, they had to do their due diligence and check to see if it could be. And when they pulled over the driver, he actually got out of the car and ran away from the scene on foot. So he attempted to completely flee the scene, and obviously this made police's antennas go up, because what are you running away for if you don't even know why we pulled you over? So of course they had to find and apprehend this person, and they were able to do that. They found him at 3 a.m. on March 30th. And when he was found, he was immediately arrested. There were some very concerning things in this Chevy Impala that this man was driving. Police found a container of bleach. They found cleaning wipes as well as window cleaner inside the car. Not only this, Samantha's cell phone was found in the car. So that kind of solidified them knowing that they had the right vehicle and that this was the person that they needed to pursue. A fact that really stood out to authorities as well was that the child locks were activated in this Chevy Impala. So basically what that means is that anyone who gets into a back seat of this car cannot open the doors from the inside. If you get into this car, into the back seat, you are trapped. And unfortunately, this started to paint a picture for police of what possibly happened to her after she got into that Impala and most likely had no way of getting back out. If everything that I've listed for you is not enough, there was a very large quantity of blood inside of the vehicle. I mean, all over the car, the back seat, the dashboard, the front passenger seat, apparently the trunk. It was everywhere. The volume of it was alarming, and it was, after being tested, found to be a match to Samantha Josephson. And this would make sense because, like I told you, her body only had 2 tablespoons still left inside of it at the time of her autopsy. The man driving the Impala that police arrested is named Nathaniel Rowland. And Nathaniel spent most of his nights living with his girlfriend in her apartment not far from the Five Points area. And he was no stranger to this area, having gone out there with his own friends. He was originally actually from New Zion, the area that Samantha's body was found. Upon his arrest, Nathaniel completely denied having anything to do with the situation. He was adamant that he was innocent, but police already had a mountain of evidence against him, and they wanted to do a bit more digging to create an even stronger case, but at this point they knew that they had the right person. When he was detained, police examined him, and he appeared to have no signs of a struggle on him, no signs of an altercation, no cuts or bruises were present. But the lab was actually able to determine that he had Samantha's DNA under his fingernails, which was in some ways a nail in the coffin for any sort of denial that he planned to continue doing at this point. Investigators made their way over to where he had been staying with his girlfriend and got a statement from her, and she was very open and honest with them. She told police that she noticed the blood in the car, and that when she asked Nathaniel about it, he basically told her to mind her business. And she also told the police about the night that Samantha was kidnapped, as far as what she knew of it. She told them that Nathaniel didn't come home like he was supposed to, and he didn't actually come home until the next morning. Not only was he not there when she woke up in the morning, but he was so late that he made her late to work. He was supposed to be her ride to work, and when he showed up, she was like, "I'm late for work, what's going on?" And she just remembered it being a really weird morning. She recalled that on that same day, he was spending a lot of time cleaning his car. Nathaniel's girlfriend allowed the police to search the area, and one of the many places that they looked was the trash. In the bins outside of the residence, they found cleaning supplies, they found a two-bladed knife, and there was blood on all of the objects. They also found a bloody sock and a bloody bandana, and forensic analysis showed that all of this was that of Samantha. So based on the wounds that she had on her body, they determined that the two-bladed knife was the weapon that was used against her. While continuing to build their case against him, police discovered CCTV footage of Nathaniel at 2 different ATMs on the night that Samantha was kidnapped. And in the footage, he has his face covered pretty well, so you can't really tell that it's him. But we know that it's him because the card that he was attempting to withdraw money with was actually Samantha's bank card. It appears that before taking her life, he may have asked her for the PIN code to her card, because when he went up to the ATM, he attempted to type in a PIN that was incorrect. So most likely either he got the PIN wrong or Samantha purposely gave him an incorrect code so that he couldn't access her accounts. In addition to being seen on the ATM CCTV, Nathaniel was caught on camera at another location. The day after Samantha was kidnapped, he was seen on camera at a cell phone store, and at this store, police confirmed with the store manager that he came in trying to sell them an iPhone that was later determined to be Samantha's. And when Nathaniel showed up at this establishment, he asked them for $300 for this phone, but the worker there said, "We can give you $150 for it." And Nathaniel wasn't happy with that, so he took the phone with him and didn't sell it to this store, which is why when police got his car, the phone was still inside of it. Nathaniel's girlfriend mentioned to police that she saw a phone that she had never seen before inside of his car, and she assumed that it was a woman's phone because it was in really good condition. It was a rose gold kind of pinkish cell phone, so she knew that it wasn't his or hers because they used Androids. And she remembered all of the odd circumstances being combined with her finding this phone, just making her feel really confused and kind of frozen, not knowing what to do. Nathaniel Rowland was charged with kidnapping, murder, and possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime, and the jury unanimously found him guilty. The judge then sentenced him to life in prison, and the judge actually stated that this was genuinely one of the most gruesome crimes that he had ever seen in his time as a judge. He's an older, a seasoned gentleman, maybe in his 50s or 60s, so he's been in law for a while, and he said that this was one of the most heartless and cold cases that he ever had to preside over, and he was sure that a life sentence was what Nathaniel deserved. I watched the statement that Samantha's mother actually gave during the trial, and it is heartbreaking. I mean, she talks about how she has nightmares about the 120 injuries her daughter had. She talks about how she envisions the last thing her daughter seeing was this man's face. She talks about just all the pain and the loss that she feels and the emptiness in her life since her daughter was taken from her. And it's just, it's one of the hardest things that I think I've watched in a while. Her family has worked ever since this tragedy happened to make a change in the ride-sharing industry. So most of us will take an Uber or a Lyft at least once or twice a year. Some of us probably take them every single day. I mean, if you live in a city where Ubers are everywhere, it's very common to take them to get wherever you need to go. And for me personally, I used Uber all the time in college, I remember. And I still use it to this day sometimes if I'm going out with friends and I don't want to have to drive. So this hits home for me on a personal level. But the reality is that we all face a risk every day with rideshare, and it's very admirable what her family has been working to do as far as making a change in the ride sharing industry. Her family has been working on Sami's Law, which is a law that would help to make ride sharing safer for users. And part of Sami's Law would require basically like a QR type code that many of us are very familiar with now in this day and age. Basically a QR code that would match a driver and a passenger before the passenger enters the vehicle. And it also includes other guidelines on reporting and transparency as well, which is incredible. Samantha's family started the What's My Name Foundation as well. And this foundation is in place to educate people on rideshare safety. So they are really making a difference. New Jersey, North Carolina, and South Carolina have all enacted laws in the wake of what happened to Samantha to improve the safety regulations of rideshare, which is great. But the tragedy in the story is that Samantha made a very understandable mistake. And I don't even like calling it a mistake because I feel that it puts unjust blame on her. But she made a very understandable mistake. She was standing on the curb and a car pulled up in front of her slowly the way that an Uber or Lyft would. She innocently got in the back seat and she had no idea that this would be the last night of her life. She had no idea that this would be the last car she would get in. A motive for what Nathaniel did is very unclear. I mean, we know that he circled the area a few times before picking her up, so it was evident that he was looking for someone. And perhaps he thought that maybe he would get more money out of it. But I question money being the motive simply because of the level of severity of what he did. Like, he could have gotten money in a very different way, in a much less gruesome way. It wouldn't make sense for this to just have been about money. To me, it just seems like something that he wanted to do just for the sake of doing it. And her mom said that when she talked in court. She said, "You did this for what? For $35 in a college student's bank account?" Like, what was the reason? It wasn't motivated by any clear thing, and we don't have an answer from him because he has proclaimed his innocence throughout all of it. His girlfriend testified against him in court, and his mother actually made a statement as well, basically just trying to say that she believed her son was innocent, and the judge shut it down almost immediately. When he had the chance to give a statement, Nathaniel showed no remorse. Actually, he showed no remorse throughout the entire course of it. He sat there with a blank stare on his face from beginning to end. But when he was able to give a statement, he didn't extend any condolences to the family. He basically said that he felt like police didn't do their jobs in the case. He felt like if police would have done their jobs, they would have caught the right person. But regardless of his claims of innocence, he will be spending the rest of his life behind bars. Samantha was awarded a posthumous political science degree from USC at what would have been her graduation ceremony, and she was laid to rest near her hometown in New Jersey. This case is terrifying. It's scary because it could happen to any of us, and I know I say that in a lot of my videos, but college students going out for a night with their friends, just planning to have a normal night and come back home and go to sleep. We all know what that's like, and a normal night out turned into a nightmare for her. I can't imagine the nightmares that her boyfriend has, knowing that she had asked him to come out there that night. And I think we tend to blame ourselves for things that are not our fault. And when I was watching his testimony, you could see the pain in his eyes. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine what her parents are feeling, of course, first and foremost, what they're going through, and her sister, and it's just tragic. It's really hard to conceptualize that this is happening in a day and age where it seems like there are so many safeguards. But the reality is we have to protect ourselves first and foremost. We have to be very aware of our surroundings. And just so I'm clear, this is not her fault. This is not victim blaming. But as people who could become victims at any moment in time, we all have to be very aware that bad, evil people exist in the world who don't have our best interest at heart at all. And Nathaniel Rowland was one of them. I wish it never had to happen at all. But hopefully, at the very least, like her family is saying, hopefully there's change that can come of this. When you're getting in an Uber, don't be afraid to look at that license plate. Don't be afraid if your driver is Bob and you look at the picture of Bob and then you go to get in the car and it looks like George. Don't be afraid to say something. Don't be afraid to say, "What's my name?" before you get in an Uber. Many Uber drivers, as a courtesy, when they see you, they'll say your name so that it kind of puts that layer of comfort there. But not all of them do that. So it's okay to be like, "Hi, what's my name?" To make sure they have Shayna listed on that paper or on their phone. It's okay to follow the map to make sure they're going in the right direction. We have to protect ourselves. It's okay to talk on the phone with a loved one while you're in the car if that makes you feel safer. And as an Uber or Lyft driver, there are risks associated with that as well. You are driving and you are letting strangers into your vehicle. There is equal risk involved for everyone, right? So even for our Uber and Lyft drivers, taking the extra step to confirm who you're picking up for your own safety. Like, there are things that all of us can do. Puffy has been crawling all over me throughout the course of this video, so I hope I didn't seem distracted or frustrated. But yeah, this one really hit me. So hopefully you got something out of it. Be sure to let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And I think that's where I'm gonna leave you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. As always, if you made it this far, you are loyal. You really are, and I appreciate you. I hope you have a wonderful morning or afternoon or evening, depending on what time it is when you watch this video. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. All right, you guys. See you. Peace.